Hi, everybody. Welcome to the E3 Award in Sewing Design and Construction. So, this is the NCFE, the entry level 3, which is the equivalent of a national vocational qualification. So, today's goals are to learn a little bit about the course, set up the sewing machine, and then we're going to experiment by making some technical samples or explore stitches. So this presentation is a recording from yesterday's presentation. I've done this so that you're able to re-listen to it back and just to clarify any information that we might have missed on the day yesterday. So yesterday we started by doing a little bit of housekeeping. And when we talk about housekeeping, the first thing we need to think about is whenever you come in, please sign the fire sheet and the register. The fire sheet is critical because we need to know how many people have been in the building. Toilets. Toilets are straight at the end of the corridor and when you turn right. And if you needed anything from the kitchen likewise is straight at the end of the corridor. Internet. So when you go to the end of the corridor and you turn left, if you were going out if you were heading out the building, you will see the printer on the left hand side, and you will also see the computer room. You'll be introduced to the computers next week when you make your mood board, so we'll come on to that later. We then focused on icebreakers, and the nice thing about an icebreaker is so that we get to know each other. So we asked everybody to tell us your name and an interesting fact about yourself. So a little bit about the qualification, the introductory award into sewing design and construction. As we've said, it's an entry level qualification. It's at the equivalent of an MVQ. And it's mostly suitable for those who have got basic sewing skills, or brilliant if you've never made anything before. If you've never touched a sewing machine, it's ideal. Or for somebody who might have been sewing at school, always had an interest but never got into it until today, return stitcher. Or for those who want to build their skills and progress towards the level 1. The course has 8 learning sessions, so there's 8 sessions to achieve the qualification. We're looking at 1 unit with 6 learning outcomes, and we'll come on to the outcomes later on. You will also have some tasks. So these tasks will be where you will make some samples. There's technical samples that we started doing last week. And there will also be the construction of a final product. And the final product will be a makeup bag, and we'll make it out of calico. So a little short outlook at the syllabus, and we gave you a copy of the syllabus yesterday, and that looks at weeks 1 to 4. And as you know, week 1 was yesterday, so we talked about the setting up of the sewing machine. We started to explore stitches. We made technical samples. Week 2, we look at fabric movement, which is really important when you're making things or if you're making garments. Fabric movement in the sense of the fabric grain line. So the grain line, if it's on straight of grain, you know that the garment that you're making will hang perfectly. However, if it's on a bias, then we know that the fabric will have movement, and we will look at that. We're going to look at a little bit of weaving, just how fabric is made in general. And then we're going to move on to making a mood board. So we'll start gathering some resources. We talked about you bringing an object in that you liked, or photograph an object that you can put towards a mood board. It will just give you a sense of like a direction to start with, something that you're interested in. And what I'll do is I'll bring some samples in of some sketchbooks that I've done, just as some sources of inspiration, and some objects as well. Week 3, we start to look at design. So you can see a photograph here of one of the previous students of how she looked at design. So she started making shapes. She coloured those shapes in. She also took photographs. And then from there, if you look at week 4, that was how she related those shapes. So she had an interest, this particular student, in kimonos, in Japanese arts and kimonos, and that was her inspiration. So in week 4 for us, we will focus on, I'll do a demonstration of how to make the bag. And then we'll sit together one to one and we'll sit and have a conversation, and we'll do a little bit of planning, looking at your mood, looking at your sketchbook and how you're going to develop that into a final project. Moodle. So Moodle is an online learning platform. It's developed by the adult education. So we've got the web address. It is moodle.cornwall-acl.ac.uk. I know it's a long web address. However, if you put that web address into the search bar, it will bring you up CALM, which is Cornwall Adult Learners Moodle. And when you're presented with a web address, your site, or you can download it through the App Store as well onto your phone. So this version that you can see on the slide is where I've downloaded it through the App Store on my phone. And when you download it on your phone, it brings you up to your site. So you'll put in the web address into your site and click connect to site. If you download it from Google, then it will bring you up with the next page. It will bring you up with this display where you'll be prompted to put in your username, which is your forename and surname, all in one all together, no spaces, and the password. And the password is capital C, change me one. And then from there, it will prompt you to add your own password to maintain security. So the next handout that I gave everybody was the health and safety contract. And what I did was I asked you all to read each sentence and sign to say that you agree with them. And what you're signing for is to say that you will keep the areas free from trips and hazards, that you'll wear suitable clothing in the classroom, as in no open toe shoes, that you will think about how you're lifting objects, heavy objects. So we're going to practice manual handling procedures, that you're going to follow the manufacturer's instructions when using equipment and any hazardous materials as well. We ask you not to consume food and drink by the sewing machines, and that's really for protection. And we've got electrical wiring by the machines. Please report any spillages or any accidents so that we can activate any safety procedures. To keep your areas clean and tidy and to store all the equipment away. So we ask you to put all the equipment away at the end of each session, just as you found it. And anything that you cut in, any cutting equipment, that has to be stored away correctly, and to dispose of any materials appropriately. So any waste, please put it in the bins. It's about respecting everybody else. And then the other statements relate to using the sewing machine. So it's keeping your hands away from the needle when you're sewing. Inform the tutor, that's myself, if there's a needle broken or if it's bent, and making sure that you will turn the machine off before making any adjustments, and keeping your foot away from the foot plate as well. And I'll let you read the rest of them, but we ask you to sign and date and to respect those, because this comes under the Health and Safety at Work Act 1974. So we've got a responsibility. I have a responsibility to keep you safe, but you also have a responsibility to keep yourself and your peers safe. So we're going to look at the qualification itself now. So the next handout that I gave everybody was the candidate information pack. And on the front of the candidate information pack will be your name, if you can sign your name for me. And then on the second page, it tells you all about the qualification. So the NCFE qualification, how that qualification can be studied. And on the third page, there's an information about those 6 learning outcomes that we talked about earlier. And if you look at it, I've broken the outcomes down to make it easy for us to understand them. So the first two, 1.1 and 1.2, talk about preparing resources. So you're going to do that anyway, because you'll prepare those resources like next week when you make your mood board. When you start getting that mood board together and you start doing your designs could be three-dimensional. You might trace around the shapes. You might already have an idea of what you want to experiment with, but that's you preparing resources. 1.2, preparing the work area. We have to work safely. So I did ask everybody, and I will ask everybody each week, when you any rubbish, any paper, any threads, to put them in the basket so that we keep the work area tidy. Because as we've said in the health and safety contract, we have to be safe for ourselves and for others. 2.1 is about making the bag. And the other three learning outcomes focus on the health and safety. Health and safety, as we've talked about, being a major part of getting the qualification. So to help you with the qualification, I've drafted up a portfolio checklist. And what I've done is I've broken it down into 3 sections. The first section focuses on the sewing machine skills, and as we've talked about, health and safety, as that's a major priority in any qualification. The middle section is all about you learning techniques. Those techniques could be sampling, making an exposed zipper, buttonholes, fabric grain lines, decorative stitches, and the basic seams, what you made in the class yesterday. The final elements are on this handout relate to the portfolio and all the pieces that you'll need to put in for the portfolio. So from today, what I'd like you to do is the samples that you've made so far, if you can look at the portfolio checklist and date those samples and put dates to when you made those samples. The portfolio checklist will go into the front inside page of your sketchbook, along with the candidate pack, the health and safety, and the syllabus. And what I suggest you do is you get a paper clip to hold all the elements together. And then your technical samples, those stitch samples that you made and the paper samples that you made, they will go in the following pages. And what I'll do is I will include a recording of how to put the portfolio together for you. Assessment. So assessment is really important, and the reason that it's so important is, if just for myself really, it's important for you, I think, so that you know you've understood the requirements of the qualification and the things that you want to learn out of it. Like some of you have said, you want to learn how to put a zipper in, or you want to learn how to do buttons and buttonholes. Some of you have got a 4-step buttonhole maker on your machine. Some of you are using a machine where it's automatic. So that's why assessment is important, to just so that you know that you're understanding. For me, it's important so that I know you understand the information that I'm trying to give you. And also, it's a way for us to clarify anything that you don't understand. Sometimes I know that when I teach these classes, I cover so much, it can be quite confusing. And I'm hoping that the video recordings will help to clarify those elements that you might be stuck with. There will also be some one-to-ones that we talked about, and that way you can ask me questions, I can ask you questions, and it's a communication dialogue so that we can work towards that design development for when you start the construction process. There is the evidence code. So we talked about the evidence codes in some of the earlier slides, and you're going to do those evidence codes anyway as you start making your project and working towards it. When you start designing, the evidence codes will show, and that will demonstrate that the learning has taken place and that you've understood it. And also, I always ask you to annotate or to write a sentence about what you've done to show that you understand the learning. And there is also the final handing in week 7 of the makeup bag and the portfolio. And finally, there will be some summative, we call it summative feedback, summative marking, sorry. That is in week 7, where I'll take everything in, we'll mark all the work, and then we'll give you it back in week 8. Week 8, we do a small portfolio shoot. So I say everybody really likes it. I say bring your if you've got nice creams or perfumes, and we style it like a magazine shoot, and we take some photographs, and that goes into the back of your portfolio. Verification. So we have an internal moderator who comes, and she'll come in and she'll observe my class to make sure that I'm teaching everybody fairly. She'll also come and she'll look at the portfolios. It's one of the colleagues from one of the other centres. She'll look at all the portfolios and she'll cross-check them with other portfolios in other sites to make sure that we're all teaching at the same standard. We also have an external moderator, and the lady comes from, I think it's Manchester she comes from. And she looks at the portfolios from every site, but all different places around the country, to make sure that we are all teaching to the same standard for the NCFE qualification. And then after moderation, the admin will contact you and they'll say to you, right, you can come and collect your work. And then your certification should be sent out sometime in August. So this is the end of the first presentation, and this should give you a good overview about the course. So like we've said, the course is made up of classwork. You're working towards the portfolio, the elements of the portfolio, through the samples, the stitches, and then the calico makeup bag. So the makeup bag for construction will be in calico. However, if you want to add anything to it, which we call decoration, that could be, let's think, it could be sashiko hand stitching, it could be applique. That applique can be in colour, but the construction of the bag will be in calico and the decoration in colour. So this is the end of the presentation, and I hope this was helpful, and we'll see you for the next one.